Well, I remember you guys played here about 5 years ago at the Tuning Fork.
Yeah, yeah. We barely experienced it because we had to be back for another show in Australia. So we didn't even. I don't think. No, we did stay the night. We landed, had to go straight to the venue, played, went straight to bed, and then like left at like the crack of dawn.
It sounds about right. And you had Dwayne Betts playing with you at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Sweet
a fairly
Dwayne.
different band than what you are right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because it was a different keyboardist then too. It was Tay on keyboards, and then now it's Lee. But I mean, like, that's one of my favorite things about bands. Like, I do love it when you hear these stories of bands like Aerosmith that have the same members the whole time.
Yeah.
But I love as a fan to like remember like or to when you listen to the Stones, you're like that's during the Brian Jones years, and that's during the Ron Wood years, and that's during the Mick Taylor years. Or that's when Nicky Hopkins was touring. That's when he wasn't. Like I love that stuff. So
Right.
we always try to keep the same guys forever because that's
Right,
how
of
the band
course.
works. But when it doesn't, it's also kind of fun.
Well, I've never heard it put quite like that before, so that's
Well,
cool.
we're friends with those guys still, so it's not like it's not if it was like if it came to blows or something, then we might not all feel that way. But
Right. So the album is called Good Luck with Whatever, and it's out on October 2nd. How are you feeling about putting out this record at this time with all the stuff going on?
I think that we wondered at first. We were like, what do we do? I mean, it's just such uncharted territory. But it felt like for us to shelve it. I'm speaking for ourselves. I don't want to speak for anybody else. It
Yep.
felt like for us to shelve it would be. It just felt like the wrong thing to do. Like if I was saying to myself, I can make more money if I wait another year. It just would feel off in terms of like how I feel spiritually about it. Like I feel like this is a rough time for everybody, and I don't think music can bring that much solace to what's going on in the world, but I think it can bring a little bit. And if I can
Yeah, I think you're
contribute,
right. Sure.
and make someone's Friday afternoon or something with a record listening, then I don't care if I don't make any money. So we just thought like we're not gonna be able to promote this the right way, but I don't care. We'll just make the next one. So we just and also one thing I've really enjoyed is you listen to some work or watch a TV show and then when you put it in the middle of a global pandemic, it takes on a new dimension.
Yeah.
And some work can survive that, and some work seems a little bit off. Like I don't really want to hear your breakup songs, or what have you. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we knocked it out of the park by any means. But even the record title, I feel like it has a new dimension to it because of what we're going through, and I like this kind of I like that the record can still stand on its own 2 feet, in my opinion.
Right. So the songs themselves, when did you write most of these? I assume it was well before the pandemic.
Well, before we recorded it last year, I mean, it's been we had this brilliant idea of let's record it in May or June of 2019, and let's sit on it until about October because Dawes is always touring, so let's get everyone a breather. And then it turns out the whole planet took one, so it didn't really work according to plan. But whatever. I mean, like this is when we were planning on releasing it, and we wanted to stay true to that.
Yeah, and you recorded it in Nashville, and you got Dave Cobb producing, so that's pretty exciting. What was that like?
It was amazing. He's a hell of a producer, and he has a very once we were in the room with him, it was easy to see why he has such a frankly a high success rate is because he brings out he forces musicians into these uncomfortable places where like you have to deliver in that moment. He's not gonna allow you to like build your take and like, do I want the S from that take or the S from that take? Like,
Right.
It's like I'm like you're singing your song and you're gonna feel it, and then
Right.
we'll do 2 or 3 takes tops. And on the second take, he'll be like, "That's great, moving on." And like, well, should we listen to it? No, we're moving on because he knows that when you insist on that level of urgency, it forces everyone to think on your feet. And when you're thinking on your feet, I like to believe a listener can hear that. I think that's why you respond. That's why we respond to jazz. Like you can tell when people are reactive, when people are
Right.
truly awake in a moment, and I don't know why we can notice it. I don't know what it means, but I feel like we can notice it, and we love it. And
Right.
a lot of rock and roll records, especially in 2019 and 2020, they're piecemealed. So for him to be like, no, you're playing your song live, all 4 of you, we're committing to a take, committing to a vocal, it forced us to be our best selves.
Right. So how did you guys? There's 4 people in the band, obviously. Did everybody kind of get on board right away, or was there some humming and hawing about that?
No, I mean that's like the kind of musicians we want to be. We pride
Right.
ourselves on being a live band before being a studio band, frankly. And so we thought like, well, if we hemmed and hawed and if we can't handle this, then then we don't have any right to go claim we're any good live, So we felt like we had to rise to that occasion, even though we hadn't made a record like that since like our 4th record.
Right. Right. And the other big difference is that you're on a record label now, Rounder Records. Does that make any difference to anybody these days, or you or
it does.
us?
I mean, it was fascinating. I mean, our thinking on it was when we made the last 4 records on our own label, we thought, let's try to keep as few cooks in the kitchen as possible. Let's let us steer this small ship and be in total control. And that was really fun and rewarding. And now we feel like, you know what? We're in our mid-30s. We've done that 4 times in a row. Now let's get as many heads in the room. Let's see what that feels like. And so, like, especially in COVID, like talking to like a marketing team or something, and there's like 20 people on my screen, and I'm thrilled. I don't know if they even are aware of the record, but I know they're working on our behalf, and it's really sweet. And so it's been a totally different experience, and we've definitely felt it already. Like radio and Spotify pickup. I don't know if it's COVID, if it's because people like this album more so far, or if it's because we have a badass record label doing like real good work, or a combination of the 3.
Let's get down into the record a little bit. And you mentioned the title of the album, Good Luck with Whatever, and the title song seems very relevant. It seems about paranoia and the media and whatever. So what's the story behind that? Where did that come from?
With a handful of these songs, I just finished Gravity's Rainbow, and I feel like that book is like it's like paranoia is all it's about, conspiracy and paranoia. So it was something that was kind of like batting around my head, and so I wanted to go to that place because it's a fascinating way of thinking, even though I'm actually not a paranoiac, however you say that. But I am fascinated by that outlook, and I also felt like this whole record, whether it's good luck with whatever, or none of my business, or didn't fix me, even in these titles, these songs are about this sort of release of like a codependence. It's trying to remove myself from the things I don't need to care about, which I feel like is, for me so far, has been the biggest indicator of stepping into adulthood, recognizing the relationships where like, oh, I'm not asked for an opinion, so I don't have to have one. Nobody cares about my opinion. Or I can admit that I don't know. Things that were like not as easy for me to say to myself maybe 10 years ago. So it ended up becoming a big part of this record.
So you mentioned becoming an adult, becoming older. Is that part of what makes this record, coming to terms with the fact that you're in a rock and roll band and you're not in your 20s anymore?
Exactly. I mean, that's what the songs Still Feel Like a Kid. It talks about explicitly, actually. But yeah, the idea that because I think anybody, no matter what age you're at, you reevaluate. You constantly reevaluate. You might do it yearly, you might do it monthly, you might do it once a decade. But I think that I was kind of with me. I feel like records are that they're an opportunity for me to take account of the last couple years. And this one, it felt like, this is the first record where I'm actually married. While I wasn't just engaged, I was actually a married person recording it and watching my life change in subtle ways and in dramatic ways, in amazing ways, pretty constantly. And so, and then when I take all that information and put that up against the fact that for a living, I still run around a stage and like wag my tongue and sing as high and loud as I can and look like a fool and play guitar solos and talk about feelings, like it's sort of there's it's a seemingly like misfire. Like it seems like they don't connect. But the reality is, like, I'm actually deeply grateful for both of those things. I'm trying to be a guy in his mid-30s gracefully, not trying to be the hippest guy that I might have been when I was 20. Not that I was hip, but I was trying to be. And embracing that. When I look at the artists that I love really the most, Randy Newman, Leonard Cohen, even Mark Knopfler and his transition out of Dire Straits. There's a grace in every case.
Right.
Joni Mitchell. An ability to grow old gracefully. They don't keep dyeing their hair. They don't keep wearing that same outfit they got famous for. And so it's that stuff that I really am trying to pay close attention to. That's that was a lot of what was going through my head.
Okay. And another track that seems to be getting some attention pre-release is St. Augustine at Night. And I assume it's fairly autobiographical.
It's actually not at all.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Because I grew up in LA, I grew up around tons of people at all times. I grew up in traffic jams every day. And so the idea of St. Augustine, Florida is truly like a fairy tale place for me.
Right.
And some people will be like, what are you talking about? This is just some small town. But to me, there's a romance because it's so unfamiliar. But
Right.
I do have family there. So I've gotten to experience that town a little more intimately than I might with other small towns that I don't have family in. And the narrator in that song isn't necessarily a member of my family, but it's sort of loosely based on experiences they've had. And really, it comes down to the equality that, or an experience that we all have a version of, which is like we all set out to break free of our past. We all set out to conquer the world in one way, shape, or form, and we inevitably don't. In some ways we do. I mean, not that people can't carve out paths for each other, but I've never met a single person that said every single thing I wanted to do I did to the fullest extent. Never met that person.
Yeah,
I think that song is about like recognizing that, seeing what it feels like to watch your life pass by to varying degrees.
Right. Now, lyrically, I found one of the ones that was most interesting to me was "Didn't Fix Me." Especially, I love the line about "I finally got a nomination for an award I don't need," and there was just endless amounts. So maybe you can give me a little background on that one.
Yeah, I mean, that verse in particular, it's sort of like I'm very guilty of this, where a lot of my friends and I who like aren't invited to those parties, oh yeah, that's not what it's about. But then the first chance that like someone is like, well, you've been nominated, you're like, oh my God, this is the best. Right. Like it's. So I'm very clear within myself that like that's not what I do it for. But I'd be lying to you if I said like that we're not all paying attention. But that song is really about how we like to outsource our problems. I remember when I was really young and like I was in my first band and we were fighting a lot. We weren't living together, but we were all about to rent a house in the valley and live together and rehearse every day. And no matter how much we were fighting, I kept thinking like, well, once we live in that house, it'll be fixed. We'll be fine. Yeah. We'll be doing what we want. And that's obviously not true because the problem wasn't where we were living. The problem was us. And that's always the case. And even in the more dramatic examples, it's finding a life partner. It's like if you find that person and you start telling yourself like, well, now I'm going to be fine. Now I'm okay. In a way, you're still missing the point. And it's not even that you can be fixed. It's embracing the fact that you won't be and finding a roundabout comfort in that. That right. It comes and goes. Your feeling of peace or love of yourself.
And that track is kind of keyboard based, as quite a few of them are, rather than guitar, which you kind of, at least I would have expected after seeing you guys 5 years ago with Dwayne. So was that a conscious decision to kind of head in that direction and
No, I mean, if anything, I think it's just mixed. Like, Didn't Fix Me is like a real guitar riff. Like, I mean, yeah. I wrote it as a guitar riff. And I think Dave Cobb, just like where he landed with it, he had the piano kind of high. And I like it. But yeah, it's like, it was definitely like, this was meant as a guitar song. It's just like, I like the fact that piano and guitar are really kind of neck and neck. Even on songs like Between the Zero and the One, like, it's rocking, and yep. But there's the piano and the guitar both kind of turned up.
Now you mentioned Between the Zero and the One. I think there's a Ouija board mentioned in there, and I got the feeling that it was kind of, I may be wrong, addressing mental illness in some form or fashion?
That's a interesting take on it. Like maybe, I mean, the song is really about it's people that I know. It's a composite, but it's about separation. It's about divorce and how we want it to be clean. We want it to be like we want to be able to like look at a Ouija board or whip out some tarot cards or like wave crystals in the air and have there be a convenient response to like why things need to be the way they are, and we all want to like and that's why the chorus is like, it's not the person that you were, it's not the person you become, it's not where you're headed to, it's not where you're coming from. Like it's never one thing or the other. You're never it's nothing is ever the completely right thing, and nothing is ever the completely wrong thing.
Right.
And when you want to reduce separation or divorce to that, then it's sort of like we're not learning our lesson in a way. And the person that like inspired that character, like, yeah, I think she suffers. I mean, that's not I feel bad for her. But so it's not a judgment. So I guess it is. I guess everything is. But it's not a condemnation.
Right. Now the album wraps up with a song called "Me Especially," and I think it's like the longest song on the record. And I hope I don't offend,
saying a lot
but
for my songs because they're long.
Yeah, it also reminded me a little bit of the Eagles' kind of "Take It to the Limit" kind of vibe to it, and it feels like it should be the end, the kind of wraps up the album. Is that what you had in mind when you wrote it?
Totally, and I thought like because it ends with these lyrics like, why am I still the youngest guy my age? Why am I still reading the same page? And it because I like the way that it circles back to Still Feel Like a Kid. I felt like it was important that wherever everything else landed, that those two songs bookended the record. It felt like a culmination of what the questions posed in the first song.
Very cool. So, what have you been doing locked down? Have you been writing more songs or thinking about it?
Yeah, I've been writing. We're gonna try to go record again. Like we're normally we'd be on tour and we're not. So we're thinking of just keeping the music rolling. Nice.
And has working with Dave Cobb and making this record changed you or the band in any particular significant way?
Yeah, I think it's allowed us to trust ourselves more. Not that we didn't before, but it's also allowed me to embrace like a certain simplicity. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant or something, but like a song like "Free as We Want to Be," I'm really proud of that, and that wouldn't have been as easy to write previously, and now like putting it down and hearing it back and feeling like, no, this still feels representative, even though it's a little straighter maybe than other songs I've written, and so that's been exciting. But it's also like I think every album is a reaction to the albums before it. So like some people with every record we've made, I've found some fans or friends that are like, just do that from now on. It's like that would be the biggest mistake we could make. I don't want to hear the next 10 songs of Good Luck with Whatever. I'm sure it'd be cool, but like I feel like that's the beginning of how a band dies. I think the way a band stays alive is by changing it up. Like there's a reason why Tattoo You sounds nothing like Aftermath. There's a reason why Graceland sounds nothing like Paul Simon's Self-Titled. It's because artists have to grow, and if they don't, they'll just wither and die. So I'm so proud of this Dave Cobb record, and I hope we work together again. But I think like we're gonna continue to try to keep pushing ourselves and making different music, whatever that is.
Very good. Sounds promising. Sounds exciting. Well, thanks for making this record. Hopefully it'll do everything that you want it to do once it gets out in the real world, whatever that is these days. Yeah. And hopefully you can come down and visit us in New Zealand sometime as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you. Have a good day.